Hey everybody, it's Elock101. Welcome to another math tutorials video. Today we're going to be talking about systems of linear equations and one of the ways of solving them. Today we're going to talk about substitution. Let's get into it. Alright, so something that's really important about systems of linear equations. X in this equation is equal to X in this equation. And so this is what substitution and all the other methods of solving linear systems of equations are about. For substitution, you're finding the value of one of the variables in the terms of one of the other variables and substituting it out for itself in the other equation. Now, what that looks like, for this equation, we have x minus y equals 3, and 3y plus x equals 11. Now, it's easier to do it with this equation because the numbers and the amounts of variables in it are smaller. But so what you'd want to do is try to isolate x right here. And to do that, we can add y to both sides, and we'll get x equals 3 plus y. So if x equals 3 plus y in this equation, x also equals 3 plus y in this equation. And so it's almost like we're doing is we're putting this in parentheses and substituting this in for x. And so that's what you're going to do. So in this equation, we're going to replace x with this right there. And this is going to look like 3y plus. Now, this is really important. You always have to have it in parentheses, and I'll show you why later. But so you have it in parentheses, and you plug it in 3y plus, in parentheses, 3 plus y. And so this is the same value of x, just replaced or substituted with 3 plus y. Equals 11. And then you can solve. So, because there's nothing right here, or at least this is a positive 1, this will remain the same. Get rid of the parentheses. We have 3y plus 3 plus y equals 11. Then from there, you just add the like terms. I see that these y's will go together, and I see that this 3 is here. So I'll subtract 3y from both sides, and I will combine these two terms. That'll leave it with me with 4y equals 8y equals 2. So now we have y, but because we know what y is, we can substitute again the value of y for y in one of the equations to get x. And so the easiest one to do it with is this one right here. So I'm just going to flip this paper and write it out. So the equation was x minus y equals 3. And the value of y is 2. So now that we know the value of y, we can substitute 2 in for y and get x. X minus, in parentheses, 2 equals 3. And here's why we can kind of see it's important to have the parentheses, because if this was a negative 2, it would become positive because there's two negatives right here. But this is a positive 2, so it stays a negative. So x minus 2 equals 3. Add 2 to both sides, and you get x equals 5. And so for our answer, we usually want to put it in the way you would put coordinate points. So in parentheses, you'll have the x value first, 5, 2, close parentheses, and that is your answer. Alright, so here's actually another example, and I wanted to show you this because this is where the fact that when you substitute the value for the variable you found into the other equation, having those parentheses is important. So obviously this is the one we're going to want to go for. for the substitution, or isolating the variable, because we already have y by itself. So for that, we'd add minus 3x from both sides, and we get negative y equals negative 3x plus 5. Multiply everything by negative 1 just to get rid of these negatives, because we don't want this to be negative. So negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, and we'll get y equals 3x minus 5. Here is our value for y that we're going to substitute, like in the last video again, for y. Now, this is where the parentheses becomes important, because we're not substituting this in for 3y. We're substituting it in just for y. So this 3 is actually going to be multiplied times these. And this is what it's going to look like. 4x plus 3, then inside parentheses, 3x minus 5. And if you think about it, it actually makes sense, because 3 is being multiplied times y. This is actually 3, oh, you can't see that, 3 times y. So this is the same thing whenever we substitute the value for y in as 3 times whatever this is right here, because they have the same value. So anyway, kind of boxing that off. Here is our equation. We have plugged this in. So in this case, we have to use the distributive property to distribute 4x plus 3 and times in parentheses 3x minus 5 equals 24. I just rewrote it twice, didn't mean to do that. You multiply, so 3 goes times 3x, and 3 goes times negative 5, and 3 times 3x is 9x, and 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. So you have 4x plus 9x minus 15 equals 24. Now combine like terms. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. Combine like terms. You're going to get 13x minus 15 equals 24. Add 15 to both sides. 13x equals 39. Divide each side by 13. 13x divided by 13. And 39 divided by 13. You're going to get x equals 3. Now, like just like in the last one, we're going to substitute the value that we found for x in one of the equations and solve for y. Let me just flip this paper back over here. And we add 3x minus y equals 5 as the equation, and x equals 3 as our value for x. Now, something that is actually kind of comes in handy is instead of having to plug this into here, we can actually, if you look back on the other side, we already had what y equals right here. So we'll actually use this equation. So y equals 3x minus 5. Flip this back over. We're not going to use this. We already have some of the work done. Y equals 3x minus 5. We're going to plug 3 in. And again, imagine as if it's in parentheses. That's always important, because as you can see, we have y equals 3 times in parentheses 3, and then minus 5. And that will be y equals 9 minus 5. Y equals 4. And just like on the last one, we're going to write it like this. 3, 4, and that is your answer, and that is how you do substitution. Now, of course, it can be a lot harder than that, but we're only going to take it up just to there. And from there, knowing the skills that you've learned from this video, just practice this up a little bit and you'll be a math master. But before you become math masters, just know this one mind-blowing fact. Cats, or more correctly, cat unicorns, are basketballs. And I am the Steph Curry of cat unicorn basketballs. Swish. Comment down below and tell me if I made that, because I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to walk away. More like spin away really coolly.